Greetings Neuro Ninjas, it's Andrew from Action Your Potential. So for this week's video, I thought I'd respond to a question a parent asked earlier in the week. And the question was, how can I stop my child worrying? I thought it was such a good question because it cuts to the heart of an issue that we all face living in a brain. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that our brain is a team of rivals. That means that there are circuits in our brain that evolve to do different things at different times. So there are safety circuits whose mission, clustered in the emotional part of the brain, level with our ears, mission of those circuits is to spot uncertainties in the world and then alert the rational processing brain behind the forehead, the prefrontal cortex. And there's this kind of conversation going on between those two areas of the brain the entire time. There are other circuits, ones in our prefrontal cortex, for example, that are all around compassion and empathy. There are ones in our prefrontal cortex that are about curiosity and seeking new information. And you can see that you might end up in an argument sometimes between different circuits in our brain. So the question, how can I stop my child worrying, cuts to the heart of the issue because we can't stop our kids worrying. In fact, we can't stop ourselves worrying. If you've been able to achieve that, can you let me know? Because you're a neuroscience miracle, because we can't stop our own minds worrying, because those automatic safety circuits that are looking out into the world, getting all sensory information first, the moment they spot uncertainties is the moment they'll start chucking up those cognitive distortions, those worries that are basically the brain beginning to focus on a particular uncertainty and search for solutions. So you've got all those kind of emotional feelings that you'll get in relation to any uncertainties you spot. Then eventually your rational processing mind might get involved and you'll come up with some solutions. And often our kids are reaching out to us and our prefrontal cortexes to offer solutions. Our prefrontal cortexes as parents have got more solutions available because we've been around for longer on the planet. So the way it works is the emotional processing circuits chuck up their worry and the prefrontal cortex gets engaged in a conversation and slowly but surely calms down that part of the brain. So it's really important to understand that we cannot stop our kids worrying. What we can do is help them develop a routine that helps them become aware that worrying is an issue. So the thing we need to do is just practice what we call cake whenever we're experiencing uncertainty, which we feel as worry and anxiety. So the moment that we're beginning to feel wobbly and anxious and we've spotted an uncertainty, something's occurred that's made us worry, we need to practice cake. Now, what is cake? It is 4 interrelated steps. Each step lifts us up into our prefrontal cortex. The first step is common humanity. We are all the same. You aren't the only person that's worrying. Your kids aren't the only person that's worrying. Every human brain worries when it experiences uncertainty. So common humanity is basically saying to oneself, everyone has this experience. Let's be honest, when we're worrying and when we're feeling anxious, that's not how the dialogue goes in our head often. We kind of beat ourselves up. We sort of overthink things. Common humanity, everyone feels anxious sometimes. Then awareness and acceptance. Just accept that you're feeling anxious right now and that's fine. Don't try and push the feelings away. Just being aware and accepting. And then, this is a key pivot, kindly and curiously go in search of whatever it was that triggered that anxiety, that worry, that uncertainty. Now, these are all skills and they are difficult skills. The last letter of cake, the E, is empathy. Applying empathy to ourselves, acknowledging that we're worried and that we're suffering a bit, that's important. It doesn't belittle the suffering. It doesn't necessarily amplify the suffering. It just enables us to understand that we're in that moment. So common humanity, awareness, acceptance, kind, curiosity, and empathy. Those are steps. Each step takes us up into our prefrontal cortex, activates the rational processing circuits, because the way the brain's configured is the emotional circuits give a response instantly because they needed to in the ancestral environment. The rational circuits take longer to get humming, and what cake does is begin to put us in our prefrontal cortex. Common humanity, awareness, acceptance, kind curiosity, and empathy, all are rational processes, engaging those rational processing circuits, turning on the body's natural calming down system, the parasympathetic nervous system. And that skill, CAKE, well, it's a life skill. It takes a long time to develop because we're fighting against a negative bias in the brain of uncertainty. And it's really important that we don't invest those cognitive distortions, those worries, as truths. They're not necessarily truths. We know that far more as adults, because that catastrophizing thought we have when we're worrying about this might happen, that might possibly happen, we know as adults that those outcomes are unlikely to happen. When we're children, we've had less experiences, and therefore we panic about those thoughts. And we've got to help our children understand that they shouldn't believe everything they think. That doesn't mean dismissing it out of hand. It just means being aware, widening our awareness. And we talk a lot in the webinars and on the website about being anxiety aware. We should be anxiety aware. We should go into the day being aware that we will feel anxious at times. We will feel uncertain at times. Even if it's just been a good day and we've got to the end and we're tired and fatigued, we're more likely to feel anxious then, because the rational processing circuits suffer from fatigue more quickly than the emotional processing circuits. The slower thinking processes are affected more by the build-up of a chemical called adenosine, which is a fatigue chemical. So it's really important to go through the day being anxiety aware, not beat yourself up when you're experiencing anxiety, and begin this conversation with our kids about cake. Practice the skill of cake. Model that skill of cake as a parent, and reach out to your child and talk about your own kind of cognitive distortions. You can see information on cognitive distortions in the description below. Just talk to them about cognitive distortions. Blame is a cognitive distortion. Catastrophizing is a cognitive distortion. Assuming, mind reading, all or nothing thinking, must, should, and ought statements. There are around 22 different cognitive distortions. All tell us that our brain's safety circuits have been activated by some event in the environment. And it's our mission, as kindly and curiously as possible as NeuroNinjas, to go in search of what triggered those feelings. Sometimes the feelings will have been triggered by complex situations, and they're not going to have instant solutions, but there will be solutions in our child's head, in our head, or in the network of brains that we're connected to, heads. And that's why it's so important to talk about these experiences openly. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone. Look after yourselves. And don't forget, always, 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 NeuroNinjas, do your rocks.